Welcome to Stuck in the Catch Fence. My name is Ryan Peters. Sorry you guys caught me off guard playing with my toys. Wasn't ready for the record button to hit, but Joe likes to surprise us once in a while. Again, my name is Ryan Peters. I'm joined by Steve Risley and Joe Spillman. Gentlemen, fellow Hoosiers, adopted and deported. How are you doing today?
Steve, go ahead.
I'm doing wonderful. Beautiful days, almost 80 degrees here in Los Angeles. Had the windows open in the house all day. The dog played outside. It was a good day.
Hell yeah.
Joe, you did not play outside. How was your day?
No, I played inside all day at the office. But, Steve, I got one better for you where Steve still got the tag on his hat.
Oh, sorry.
It looks good.
But, yeah, I played inside all day. We here in Southern Indiana apparently are experiencing a hurricane or something. I don't know what's going on. My 8-year-old son, walked outside a little bit ago. He got picked 9 feet up in the air and blown off the hill. And then apparently he thought like I paid for it or something because he asked to do it again. And I said, well, I don't know if we can get that to happen again. But besides that, I'm doing great.
Hey, Joe,
What,
was he
Steve?
the flying son?
Yeah, he was.
Don't you remember the TV show The Flying Nun?
But
You don't remember the show The Flying Nun?
No,
I'm sorry.
Oh, Sally Field. That's how she got her start. Sister Betrayal.
That was a little bit. That was before our time, Steve.
Santa Claus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So want to thank you for joining us as, like we said, one of us has nice weather. It's 80 degrees. And the other one of us has, well, pretty much a tornado that's been going on the entire day. So thank you for joining us. If you were unable to catch our last show, we did that on Thursday where we broke down the latest news. We had our first ever piece of breaking news where we got to show you Kyle Busch's mugshot when he was in Mexico. So make sure you go through and see that. That is a Stuck in the Catch Fence exclusive. And then also broke down the Busch Light Clash. So that was on Thursday. Make sure you check out the channel. Also, if you would like and subscribe. We always appreciate that as well. For what we're going to do on today's episode, we are going to give you our 3 bold predictions and then also our final 4 drivers. So we've been thinking tirelessly at that. I know Steve has been in the lab all day when he's not taking his dog outside. Joe has been at the office just crunching numbers. And I've been playing with my car. And so I probably have the worst out of the 3 bold predictions. But we're going to put it on pole position with you, Steve. You got the nice hat. Brand new, obviously. Nice looking shirt. You're clean. You're ready to go. Lead us off, Steve. What is your first bold prediction?
My first bold prediction is that after a mediocre run since about the late 90s, the RCR team will put a car in the Final Four. The 8 car will make a return, and Kyle Busch will contend in that car for the Cup Championship and will make the Final Four. Now, the fact that Kyle Busch is competing is not the bold part of the bold prediction. It's the fact that he's going to do it in an RCR car, which just for the last 20-something years historically has not really been a contender. And I like that he's in a Chevy. I think that he's going to revitalize himself by going to a new team, and he feels he's got something to prove. So I think he's going to put it in the Final Four, and it will not surprise me if Kyle Busch wins his 3rd NASCAR Cup championship by the season's over. That's my first bold prediction.
Now, let me ask you this, Steve. You've been on this for a while, ever since this was actually announced that Kyle Busch is going to RCR. And a lot of us don't haven't just now tuned into the channel may not have heard that conversation, but we have had that conversation ourselves. Did the Busch Light Clash change anything? Did it just kind of reinforce what you felt before? Or go ahead.
It actually reinforced, because I think that he looked like he practiced well, and you can't really take a lot from the Busch Clash because it's a high school track. basically. And we're not going to see the likes of that again the rest of the season. You can't really tell what drivers are going to do because based on that track. But he looked racy. He looked competitive. He got knocked and spun and banged around, got his car back up to the front, and finished. He finished second, didn't he? Didn't he have a second place finish?
He was in second, and then he gave Austin Dillon the ability to fight for a win, which is very anti Kyle Busch like.
Yeah. Well, team orders maybe. I don't know. I mean, there is blood in Austin Dillon with RCR.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it probably all the things that he did, which I don't put a lot of weight on, but he reinforced. He did not look like a slug at the Busch Clash. He looked like a racy, competitive driver, and for that, I feel pretty comfortable that my bold prediction number one is probably going to come to fruition.
Yeah,
I'm not sure he's going to win it, but I think he's going to be in the Final Four contending for it.
So essentially, you're saying that RCR will be the best that it's been since Kevin Harvick drove for Richard Childress.
Yes.
That okay. All right. Well, there would be nobody happier on this show than yours truly right here.
No, I know that. And I'm not making that prediction on your behalf. I'm making it on my behalf so that I look like a genius at the end of the year, that I was the first one to predict that Kyle Busch would contend for the championship and have a great chance of winning it, his third.
Steve, you just wore a hat with the tag still on it. Nobody could look more like a genius than what you already look right here, right now on this show.
Today.
The thing I heard today on TMZ, though, was that he was sentenced to 3 years in Mexico. I don't know when they're going to extradite him back to start his sentence.
Yeah, well, I think they have to get the government donkey to come get him. Yeah. And until that makes its way over, we'll wait till then. Joe, you've been waiting to give your first bold prediction all day long. So let's hear it.
Well, we really probably need to talk more about our ideas on this show and kind of come with a collective thought, at least to be a little bit different, because my first bold prediction of the 2023 NASCAR season is an RCR car will be in the Final Four this year with a driver named Kyle Busch.
I'm sorry, Joe.
No,
when we were doing the opening, he said you were going first, and I thought, well, good. And then he called me first, and then now I feel bad.
That's okay.
It's okay. Prediction.
Genius minds think alike.
I'm a Wish.com host. I can't help it. I already forgot what I even said when I opened it. I was playing with a car, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Get what you pay for.
But so, anyway, that's
why do you feel this way?
Well, I mean, really, for all the same reasons that Steve said, I don't put real or too much stock into the Busch class. I can't talk today.
You can do it, Joe. We got you.
At all. I still think that's kind of a gimmick race. We talked about that last show. Not going to beat the dead horse, but I kind of feel like RCR going out and Childress going out and getting Kyle Busch is kind of like an NFL team selling the house for that, that great quarterback to come in and steer the ship right.
Will you promise he won't be Russell Wilson?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, not a Russell Wilson. More like going out and selling the house to get a Patrick Mahomes or a Joe Burrow is kind of how I'm looking at that. And I think that RCR is going to do everything they can to make sure that Kyle Busch is going to be in a car that's going to compete week in and week out. And I think Austin Dillon's probably going to be the benefactor of that, because Kyle Busch and his team brings a whole lot of experience to RCR, and they know how to set these cars up, as evident with at the Clash. Obviously both those cars had the same setup. They were running great equipment there, and I think they're going to be running great equipment all year. When it comes down to it, I'll kind of elaborate on my bold prediction. I think Austin Dillon also makes the playoffs this year. I don't think he'll be in the Final Four, because I think that's going to come down to quality race car drivers. And I still think Kyle Busch is one of the best in the business, if right there next to Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and Joey Logano, obviously. So I
You
bold
think
prediction.
Austin Dillon? Okay.
Yeah,
I have a question for you
okay. Ask.
to kind of turn it around a little bit. And Joe certainly, or Ryan certainly, jump in on this as you're the authority on RCR now. Despite what everybody tells you about NASCAR not being unlike F1, there still is a pecking order on teams.
Right.
I think with Hendrick, it's Elliott. I think that everybody would tell you, yeah, every of the team members would say that Elliott is probably the top dog at Hendrick. I mean, you can go down the list. Harvick at Stewart Haas. I think that at JGR it was Kyle Busch. It's probably now Hamlin is the top dog.
They
Who
probably
becomes the
tie.
top dog at RCR? Is it Austin Dillon or is it Joe Gibbs? And it's an unofficial title. I know nobody's going to come out and stick a captain logo on one of their racing suits, but does
Well,
something? Go ahead.
no, I think Kyle Busch is obviously the top dog, and I'm going to disagree with you as far as Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, and Bowman. I think we saw last year that they try to put out a quality car for all four of their drivers every week. I
Sure.
think, but as far as RCR is concerned, I don't think that you bring Kyle Busch into RCR and not allow him to be the leader of the pack. I think that. I mean, to be quite honest, and I'm not trying to bash Austin Dillon. I'm not trying to bash his brother, but make no mistake, they're in the positions to race cars because of their family connections. I don't think that they would be probably at the top tier of their sport if they didn't have a little guidance getting there, if that makes sense. And I'm not trying to bash them, and I'm not saying that they can't drive race cars, but what I'm saying is you don't bring Kyle Busch to RCR and then tell him he's the number two driver on the team.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. I would say that Austin Dillon is better than JJ Yaley. So Austin
Yeah,
Dillon could have a ride in the top series because nobody likes Rick Ware. It's over
I
there. Yeah,
I
right.
disagree. JJ Whaley's an incredible race car driver.
No, he's not. He's incredible at running in last place. I'm not talking about JJ Yaley, damn it. I'm moving on. So you guys already, got my ego stroked. I'm ready to go. Kyle Busch. I'm excited for that. I hope you guys are right. Mine is a little bit different as we need something different. My first prediction is Trackhouse Racing will come back down to earth. And what does that mean? Ross Chastain will win one race, and Daniel Suarez will not win a race this season. As we both know, kind of out of nowhere, Trackhouse Racing exploded onto the scene. Ross Chastain has already, in an exhibition race, found a way to wreck Denny Hamlin. I think that the patience for Ross Chastain is no longer there. Now, Daniel Suarez is a very well-respected driver, but I just don't think Daniel Suarez has the talent to compete night in and night out, or every Sunday, if you want to put it that way, to win races. He ended up winning on a road course last year. That's going to be a lot different this year, as we know that drivers now that were running good in the race will actually get to compete for the win versus stage wins. And I think that's going to eliminate his chance. So I think Trackhouse Racing will look more like what we thought they were, a solid team, but not one competing for a championship this year. Steve, do you
Yeah,
have a rebuttal?
yeah. No, you make a good point, and I do think that Chastain will come down to earth. And I think if you look at Suarez's only win, it was where was it on a road
Sonoma, I
course?
think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was at a road course, and I believe Elliott was out in front when the yellow flag was flown and everybody made do I pit stop for the win or do I pit stop for the stage win? And I think that, as I recall, that affected Elliott, who I believe was leading that race when the pit and went out like fourth or fifth and was never able to get back up in front and pass the cars. As Sonoma is a hard track to pass at. So I think that the new rules probably hurt Suarez, who I think was a beneficiary of some of the pit stop shenanigans on the road courses. So we'll see. I don't know that he's capable of winning races on his own. He didn't really contend for a win on the mile and a half or the mile tracks. So I think that's a good bold prediction on your behalf.
Yeah.
Joe, do you feel one way or the other?
Yeah, I actually think that I think you could possibly be wrong in this. I think that we're probably going to get to see some watermelons being smashed 2 or 3 times this year.
Yeah, it's most certainly a possibility. And when I said Ross Chastain will come back down to earth, and that might be due to somebody's fist punching him in the forehead. So that is round one. Steve, we'll go to you for your second bold prediction of the season.
My second bold prediction is that I believe this year only one of the 4 Hendrick cars will make the playoffs, the final.
Okay.
That instead of putting 2 in there or possibly even 3, as we're contending till the end last year, I think you're going to see. I think the competition has risen. We talked already about RCR. Now I think that the coming of Kyle is elevated that team immediately. But I think that there's only going to be one Hendrick car in the final 4. I think it'll come down to the 5 car and the 9 car, and whoever makes fewer mistakes of the 2. But I think my second bold prediction is you only see one of the Hendrick cars in the final 4.
Steve, I'm sure we could guess which one, but make sure you save that for your championship 4 when we announce that.
Right.
But I will say this. On my championship 4 prediction, I have the exact same prediction, so I will wait to tell you my Hendrick car in the championship 4 as well.
Okay.
Joe, what say you?
I'm gonna, and this is based off last year of what we saw in the competitiveness of the new next gen car. I think that we will see at least 14 different winners in the regular season this year.
14.
14.
Okay, so we had a lot last year.
Prediction.
I don't think that we get to the record setting. What we have 18 or 19 last year?
19, yes.
19. I don't think, I think it's a possibility we get to 19. I don't want to go that far because I think I think some of these drivers, especially the good drivers like Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, which we saw at the end of the season, Kyle Busch, there was a learning curve for this new car as they started racing last year. And I think some people picked up some wins on some road courses and some short tracks that probably won't pick up a win this year. But I still think that this car really brings the entire pack together as far as competitiveness. And I think it leads to what we'll see year in and year out going forward with this car is, 12 to 14 to 16 winners every year.
I will ask you this question, Joe, because I feel the same way. But last year, what surprised me is I felt like throughout the season, somebody would get a hold of it come playoffs. Well, that was not true.
Right.
We did not have a dominant car in the playoffs. Steve, you would know the most dominant regular season driver really struggled in the playoffs and did everything he could to use his season points and Chase Elliott to just keep advancing to where he got to the final 4. Do you think that changes this year with your regular season prediction of the 15 winners, or do you think it's just going to be a complete crapshoot every single round?
Well, that really depends, and the development of this car is one more year into it. They have track time. They have a complete season of track time, and really what we saw in the playoffs and all season, but particularly in the playoffs, I think it was highlighted that we saw cars just having mechanical problem after mechanical problem, tire issues, overheating issues. And I think that those problems are probably going to be curved a little bit. And I don't think that we see the mechanical problems that we saw this year. I mean, Kyle Larson last year essentially, and Kyle Busch both essentially had no chance in the playoffs. But Kyle Busch got in the first round of the playoffs. I think he went out the first 3 races. He didn't even have a chance. Yeah. So I think that those problems are fixed, and I'm not to be a conspiracy theorist, and I'm not so sure that wasn't the direction that JGR wanted Kyle Busch to go in anyway, to be honest with you. But I still think that we have a large number of winners, and I do think that the playoffs are probably a little bit more competitive with the top 6 to 8 drivers this year.
Gotcha. And I will piggyback off that just a little bit with my next prediction.
Wait,
As
can I rebut his comment?
yeah, go ahead.
I disagree. And
In
here's
what
why,
way?
and I'll try and do it as quickly as I can. I think that the gap of engineering on these cars, even though they're allegedly IROC equal, I think that they're not. And I think the engineers are engineers, and there are organizations that can pay a lot more engineers than some. I think you'll see more multiple winning cars this year than you'll see single winning cars. And I think it's going to bunch up. And I think you're going to have fewer drivers automatically qualify to get in, and you'll have a much broader base of people getting in on points
Okay.
because of the engineering aspect of it. I think some of the engineers are going to figure out nuances in these cars that others aren't. And they've had a year to play with them now and figure that out.
Like using Scotch tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know not to use Scotch tape anymore.
No more Scotch tape.
They figured that out. Some have figured it out. You'll still
Yeah.
see some try and do it.
I think 14 or 15 is good. If it was up to me, I'd probably say 12, but I do think that's a good number. And my second bold
I think
prediction.
less than 10.
Oh, that is a very bold prediction then. My second prediction will be Christopher Bell will lead NASCAR in wins, be the best driver for Toyota, and ultimately win the NASCAR championship this year. And this is something that I have felt like Christopher Bell has had the talent to do. And I think he is going to take over Joe Gibbs Racing with the void left by Kyle Busch. Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin are not getting any younger. And we saw what Christopher Bell can do last year on any track. He can win road courses. He can win flat tracks. He can win when he absolutely has to win, the way that he did at Martinsville. He is one of the best prospects that we have seen in NASCAR. He was handpicked by Kyle Busch to race for him whenever he met him at the Chili Bowl. And I think that talent ultimately at 27, now going into 28 years old, which would be the prime in NASCAR, takes control. And I will say this, I don't think you need as many wins as what you used to with this car. So you could lead the entire series in wins and only win 4 to 5 races like Chase Elliott did last year. You don't have to win 9 races like we saw Kevin Harvick do. The best Toyota driver, I really don't think that that's that hard this year. His probably main competition would be Denny Hamlin. And I feel like Denny Hamlin keeps moving further and further. He's now on the contract talk of things. Is he going to go to 23-11 after this year? That's something that may weigh heavy on him. Martin Truex Jr. is probably his last year. But I think obviously the biggest one is, does he win a championship? And that's where, you guys can give your input whether or not you think Christopher Bell is a championship worthy driver. And, I'll let you two have at it with my second bold prediction.
I think Christopher Bell is a championship worthy driver. I don't know that he gets there this year. I think he's certainly a great driver. He may lead Toyota in race wins this year. I don't know that to be true, but it's a possibility. I mean, I think he's a good enough driver to do that. Now, what it sounds to me like is you believe that he may become a superstar in this sport, and he probably has the potential to do that, but I don't think that he's there yet.
Steve?
I would tend to agree with my esteemed colleague, Joe, that I think that he will be a championship caliber driver. I don't think he's there yet, and I still think there's a robustness still of higher echelon drivers in the chase. I just think that he'll get there, and I think in a few years we'll be looking at Christopher Bell as a contender for championships as we look at other drivers right now. We got to look at the 22 car as a perennial now. Then there are others. Does the 8 become a perennial now for the rest of his career? Does the 9 become a perennial? Where you got the same teams and the same guys who are always up front. Christopher Bell will break into that circle, but I don't think he's quite there yet.
Okay. So that's why it is a bold prediction. The only thing I would say is he was by far, and at least in my opinion, the most consistent driver at Toyota last year anyway.
Yeah.
I think Denny Hamlin average finish last year was 15th.
Yeah, it was
And,
bad.
it was not good for him. Martin Truex, we know, didn't get a win the entire season. And then Kyle Busch, started out having a really good midseason and then fell completely flat. I don't think 23XI is there yet to contend for wins consistently. So, I think it's easy for him to be the best Toyota driver because I think he already did it last year. And he made the championship 4 last year. So we're only talking one more race win for Christopher Bell to win a championship.
I'll rebut that, but I'll save that for my picks in the final 4.
Okay. All right. So, Steve, now it is your turn to go with your last bold prediction.
Okay. My last bold prediction is one that is going to irritate grossly one of the members of our panel here. I boldly, as he slowly puts his drink down, I boldly predict that somebody outside the top 30 in points will win a race and qualify. With the super speedways, 2 at Daytona and 2 at Talladega, I think that the closeness of these cars, bring lesser quality teams into play at certain tracks. We saw that.
Make it bold for this reason, Steve. Who would it be if you could choose one?
Are you saying Bubba has a chance? Do that.
It's not going to matter. It's any qualified driver outside the top 30.
So you got,
of course, we have our favorites that would irritate you even more.
You heard it here first. Bubba Wallace will make the playoffs.
I think the fact that we have more road courses on there, which eliminate certain drivers who are not good road course drivers, but are good oval track drivers, and that narrows that field down a little bit and allows, again, some of the lesser quality drivers and teams to get lucky, catch a lucky break or something, and get out front. The car, for the most part, if it's durable enough to last the duration of the race, is capable of carrying a lesser quality driver. You get to the super speedways, you guys all know as well as I do, anything can happen. Even so much as a David Reagan can go away with a Daytona 500 win, where a Denny Hamlin does not have one. A Mark Martin never got one. Dale Earnhardt waited 20 years to get one. Some of these, again, some idiot, and he's not an idiot, but he's definitely a lesser quality driver, steps up, and wins that race. The 34 car, is it Michael McDowell?
Yeah.
Wins one. Coming out of nowhere. Golly, dadgummit, 2 or 3 times we almost had Bubba Wallace winning on a super speedway.
I don't think Bubba Wallace will finish below 30th, so I don't think that.
I don't think
no. But I'm talking about lesser quality drivers being able to have a chance to win.
Steve,
so my third bold prediction is to say that somebody outside the top 30 will qualify and win a race for the playoffs.
But can I give you the driver that I would like to see if that is the case?
Just give me the ones you don't want to see.
No. I'm not going to say a bunch of cuss words. I don't want to right now. If I could choose a driver that could possibly get this done, and I do think Speedway would be where it's at, I would pick Justin Haley. I think that that team with AJ Allmendinger this year, I think they're going to surprise some people. So Justin Haley could surprise somebody at a super speedway. And I think that wouldn't be too far-fetched, Steve, for that to happen. But if it does, and it's Justin Haley, I'll be at peace. If it's
if it's a Cody Ware or a JJ Haley, you're going to be drinking heavily.
Haley.
So that's my third bold prediction. Somebody outside of the top 30 will win a race. And you got dirt at Bristol. That's another unknown quantity.
That's a bold prediction.
Okay, that's a bold prediction.
That's a bold prediction, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. I'm gonna give you my bold prediction here in a minute. But just to follow up with you, Steve, I think in my opinion, the only way we see somebody outside of the top 30 in points is if we run into a situation like we did with Keselowski last year and owner and driver points for making alterations to their car, and they get fined a whole bunch of points, but you still have a quality driver in the top 30 with points. So
he's outside the top 30 and
yeah,
he wins and he qualifies. I didn't give a name.
Yeah, I think that's a scenario where we could possibly see that. But when you start talking top 30 in points, man, you're starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel. So
you're getting down to the Cody Wares
right,
and the JJ
and I think I think that's probably exactly why NASCAR changed that rule, because what a storyline it is if you get a Haley or a McDowell or somebody in, which I think McDowell probably finished inside the top 30.
Yeah, he
so
did.
Probably. I don't think that'll be an issue.
Yeah, he had the best year of his career, if you want to put that in perspective.
Right. So my last bold prediction for the 2023 season is Ford will struggle all year long. And I'll give you a reason why, since we're all just shaking our head, because you're like, yeah, that's really not a bold prediction.
Really a bold prediction.
Yeah, it's really not. It's probably the truth, but we saw what they did last year. And then, they followed that up this year in the Clash with just a horrible showing at the Clash for really all the Ford cars. So, I don't think that Ford, as a manufacturer in NASCAR right now, has really nailed this new car down or nailed down a setup or something's going on with them. So, I could be totally wrong. They could figure something out, but what I'm seeing right now is they struggle all year to compete.
I will go with you. I actually made a audible at the last second for my championship Ford to include a Ford, and it's probably a bold prediction. It is a bold prediction, and it's just somebody that I decided to pick because I think has an opportunity to be that Ford, and we'll announce that here in a second. But Joe, I'm right there with you. It seems like there's a weird mix between Ford and the best storyline was Ryan Preece for like 10 laps coming in and then just completely fell apart. Right. And Almirola ends up winning a race or a heat, and then he ends up being absolutely terrible and finishes towards the back. I agree with you. Again, that's a 33% chance that they are the worst team out of all the three teams. I'm not sure exactly what that looks like when you say they struggle. Is it struggle relative to what other teams are doing, or is it they struggle as in they are not competing every single week?
Yeah, I don't think that they're competing every single week. I think if they
coming off a championship.
Yeah. And
okay.
I think they struggled all year last year, and then Joey Logano kind of found that sweet spot at the end of the year, right? And then going into the championship, and then you find that hint of greatness, but you come right into the next season. At least we can't base too much off the Clash, but they didn't show well there at all, and I don't think that they have things figured out. And maybe toward the end of the season, they might get there again. But if they don't struggle, I think it's going to be, I think we'll see them not struggle either on short tracks or on road courses. But I think when you get in the bread and butter of the 1.5 mile tracks, I don't think they compete on those.
I don't think that they can compete as long as they keep Stewart-Haas as their flagship team. Stewart-Haas is dysfunctional, really. Now you've got a situation where you've got half the team, Haas ownership, focused on F1, and his F1 team is growing in stature over there. And you've got Kevin Harvick, who is the flagship driver for the flagship team of Ford, announcing his retirement, and basically, is this going to be a ceremonial campaign for that? I don't think it's going to be intended to be, but I have a feeling it's going to end up being. So Ford needs to retool and try and latch on to one of the top teams or retool the Stewart-Haas team. You got Tony in the booth now. I mean, he's doing Daytona. This is an owner of a team who should be down in the pits pre-race and making decisions, especially with the expertise and knowledge that he has. So I think as long as Stewart-Haas is the flagship team, I think your bold prediction isn't so bold.
I will contest that on two different fronts. I think obviously, to me, Penske has to be the team because they're the one that ended up winning the championship last year.
Right.
That being said, one of their drivers won one race, and we all know how super speedway races are. Austin Cindric won the Daytona 500 and did
One
not show
driver
any.
won none.
Yeah, and the other one didn't win any. And I think if Ford wants to compete, it has to be Ryan Blaney. I do like Ryan Preece. I think that was a good hire, getting him in better equipment. But I think if Ford ever wants to take off as a team together, it has to be Ryan Blaney. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't think Ryan Blaney's that great. I think he's in good equipment, but I just don't think he's that great of a driver. And I think, to your credit, Joe, that's what's going to ultimately hold Ford back. Now, I will say this on the topic of Kevin Harvick. I think he's in a better position now than, say, Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson at the end of their career. I think that he has still an opportunity to compete for wins. I just don't know if Stuart Haas has the opportunity to compete for wins. When Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson retired, I think they were DONE, done. And I still think Kevin Harvick has a little bit in the tank compared to those two. He just doesn't have nearly the equipment that those two had.
Well, getting off on a tangent a little bit, I think Jimmy Johnson was pretty much forced out by Hendrick. And Gordon was done. He was toast. He wasn't competitive, but I just get more and more of a feeling that Johnson was kind of, maybe he got miffed that he wasn't offered the package that Gordon was offered. In terms of, it just seemed to me that with 7 championships and joining the big three or becoming part of the big three, he wasn't accorded the same love and stature that the other two drivers were, or even that Jeff Gordon was at Hendrick. But that's Steve, a sidebar for another day.
No, actually, Steve, you lead a perfect segue, because I'm going to talk about Jimmy Johnson, except this time as a car owner, because my third bold prediction is that Legacy Motor Club, which is a terrible name, by the way, but is Petty GMS, as it was formerly known, will impress this year, as I believe Noah Gragson will win the Rookie of the Year, and his teammate Eric Jones will win a race. Ooh. So that is my last bold prediction. And I think a lot of people have already penciled in Ty Gibbs, but I will say the same thing about Ty Gibbs that I said about Ross Chastain. If he's looking for a friend, he will not find one outside of his grandpa, and his grandpa can't do anything on the track when it comes to Ty Gibbs. I think that he has earned zero respect. He is not liked inside of, the haulers and the garages and everything else. And I think that Eric Jones was on the precipice of doing something good last year. Darlington is one of his best races. I think he easily could win there. And there's a few other places that Eric Jones could win, and he's only 26 years old. I feel like we missed that point more than usual, is that he is 5 years younger now than Bubba Wallace. And it feels like he's, that age, if not older. And Eric Jones has shown a lot of talent. He didn't put things together at, Joe Gibbs the way that I think Joe Gibbs wanted, being the 4th string there. But I think Eric Jones, I've always liked the driver. I really, really like the person. I think that, and I hate to say this, Legacy Motor Club actually does a really, really good job with their first year being that, but building upon what they did last year as Petty GMS.
What's your problem with the name? I mean, Legacy, you got Richard Petty.
It's not a club.
Hang on.
It's not a club. You can't buy a membership. It's not a club.
You have Petty, and now you've got Johnson, who's another 7-time champion, who's a part-time driver. So he's really a legacy as well.
Legacy
I think the name fits.
Steve, we're trying to go too European with the club stuff. I don't like it. Okay. It's motorsports, it's racing. There is no damn club. You can't buy a membership to get in.
I didn't know. Is it called Legacy Motor Club?
That is exactly what it's called. Legacy Motor Club.
Well, that's idiotic.
Yeah, exactly. It's dumb. It's dumb, Steve.
Dumb.
That is the power of this show.
I didn't realize it was called Legacy
Changing
Motor
minds
Club.
Here. Yeah, Legacy Motor Club is dumb.
Dumb.
But does anybody have something to say about my bold prediction?
No, I think it's a good bold prediction.
Good bold prediction.
Yeah, and the great thing about bold predictions is I think we're sitting here trying to come up with things that are going to make people go, "What?" But actually, everyone that we came up with was like, "Yeah, I can see that happening." So I don't know how bold any of our predictions are, but I
think the boldest was a driver out of the top 30 winning.
Yeah. Yeah,
That would, because that
that's
would be
pretty
history.
bold.
Yes.
So, but
Well,
no,
now we're
go ahead.
go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, I just think that that comes down to, you know, I think maybe some of our listeners or viewers here, some of the things we said are probably like, yeah, I don't see that happening. And, you know, I think, you know, the more that you watch, you know, like Eric Jones last year, the more you watch that driver, he looks like he's one of those drivers where you're like, I'd like to see what that guy could do if he's the number one driver and number two driver on a team where they're really putting effort to get out there and put him in a quality machine every week. So, you know, I think that that's a great bold prediction. I hope that comes true because I like Eric Jones as well.
Yeah, yeah. So just to recap real quick, my three bold predictions were Christopher Bell is going to be the best Toyota driver and win a championship, plus the most wins in NASCAR. I also predicted, obviously, the Legacy Motor Club will impress this year, and I said a team that will fall back to reality will be that of Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez and Trackhouse Racing. Steve, you want to go ahead and recap your three real quick?
Dude, I'm 64. You think I can remember mine? Mine were Kyle Busch making the Final Four in the RCR program, which I think is the big part of that. I'm not going to surprise me that Kyle Busch is driving for a championship again. It's going to surprise me that he's doing it in the 8 car. I believe that only one Hendrick driver will make the Final Four. I'll announce which one I'm picking in the next segment of our show. And the third one was that a driver outside the top 30 will qualify for the chase.
Very and Joe?
Yeah, my three, just to review, were I think Kyle Busch makes the Final Four this year as well in a Childress car. We'll see at least 14 different winners during the regular season, and Ford will struggle to compete all year.
Well, I may be biased, guys, but I thought you guys had great bold predictions and put great cases up for each one of your bold predictions. So now we're going to go to our championship 4, and I will lead this segment off because I know you guys are going to have something to say. So I already announced one of them. Christopher Bell, I think, is going to win the championship. You don't have to choose your championship winner. You can say that if you want to, but I've already made that statement in my earlier segment. I also believe that Chase Elliott will make the Final Four. He is my one Hendrick driver. I am going to go back to being biased again because I have hope, and I think Kyle Busch has something to prove, and I think that he makes the Final Four. And here's where things get scary and where, you know, I hold on to and pull my Hans device a little bit tighter along with my seatbelt. I have Chase Briscoe making the Final Four as my Ford driver. So I'm choosing a fellow Hoosier, somebody that actually was one race away from making the Final Four. So I'm going to choose dirt driver, now NASCAR driver, fellow Hoosier, Chase Briscoe to make the Final Four.
I thought for sure you were going to say J.J. Yaley.
Oh, man.
If I say J.J. Yaley, please let everyone know the rapture is happening tomorrow. Read Revelations and go to church.
If anybody picks J.J. Yaley to make the Final Four on this show, you're fired.
You're fired.
Joe, you want me to go first or you go next?
So I'll go next. I already kind of disclosed this one. Obviously, I think that Kyle Busch is going to be in the Final Four this year. But I'm going to differ from you guys a little bit. I think we see two Hendrick cars in the Final Four this year, and that is Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson. And then I'm gonna blow you away a little bit like you just blew us away, Ryan. I'm going to say the last driver in the Final Four this year is Ross Chastain.
Okay. I don't think that's blowing anybody. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't be surprised if Ross Chastain made the Final Four. Obviously, I put up my case why he wouldn't, but at the same time, I think there's an equal reality that he is.
Yeah, he's a good driver. I love him or hate him, which most people hate him because of the way he drives. He could still drive.
Steve, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to what I talked about and held a belief in that they've had a year to tinker with these cars now, and engineers have figured it out. Most of the engineers on the teams got the best drivers. So I think that the era of young drivers who don't have quite the ties to the championship caliber teams, i.e. JGR or Hendrick or Penske, are probably going to contend but not make it. So therefore, my final four is, because of his talent, I think he'll elevate the program, is the 8 car, which is Kyle Busch. I think of the Hendrick boys, I think once again, consistency gets you into the championship, and nobody was more consistent than the 9 car last year at scoring points, keeping himself as much out of trouble as possible, and winning 5 races, which led the series. I think there's a lot of dust cleared off at JGR with the departure of Kyle Busch. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm saying it just took some of the ear or ire out of the whole team. I think the 11 car is going to have a banner year. I think that there's still a lot of racing left in the 11 car. And Denny Hamlin, I think, is a driver who's hell bent like Earnhardt was to win the Daytona 500. I think Hamlin's done everything else in racing except win the Cup. And I think that the 11 car is going to make the Final Four and be a contender. And at this point in time, I cannot discount the 22 car. He is becoming a premier driver, if not the premier driver in the league right now. He wins races you don't expect him to win, and he comes out of nowhere. He's a filthy driver in terms of he'll bump you and rub you and race you, and he'll do what he's got to do to win. And he'll get in a scrap or a fight in the pits with anybody that wants to take him on, but he'll go pick up his trophy and park his car in victory lane. So those are my four. Go ahead.
His Jack Man in the fight. Yes.
All right. Yeah. So I've got the 8. Big. I've got the 8, the 9, the 11, and the 22.
And we now know what would happen when Joey Logano wrecks somebody thanks to number 11, especially if it is at Martinsville, because that short track racing for you. So
rubbing is racing, baby.
So to recap, we have 1 or 2 drivers for all of us. That is Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch.
Yes.
And I think that the longest shot would obviously be my pick, which would be Chase Briscoe. Steve, you decided to go with a returning 2-time champion and Joey Logano making his way back to the Final Four. Joe, you went to 2 years ago, the champion and Kyle Larson, and then using Ross Chastain.
Yes.
So I think that's a good Final Four. I think obviously mine is by far going to be the most difficult to get to the Final Four. I think you guys have the easier roads, but I also think at the end of the day, when it comes to the Final Four, it takes a lot of talent, but more importantly, it takes a lot of luck. And we saw that last year, more than ever. It takes a whole lot of luck to get to the Final Four. So, I think that is a great way to end the show. Congratulations, guys. I think you guys did a wonderful job.
Yeah.
Bravo.
You too, buddy.
You too.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And again, I want to thank everybody that has been tuning in. We are so excited to be beginning this channel. Things are only going to go up. Again, this is going to be something that we build in with you guys, the viewer. And next week, we're going to have our weekly show on Thursday where we break down not only what we think is going to happen during the duels, we will probably do all kinds of stuff because we're leading up to the Great American Race next week. It is a huge week in terms of auto racing. So we got the duels coming up. We have qualifying on top of that, which we'll kind of get into and break that stuff down. Thursday's show might be a long show because it's going to be the first time we talk about the Daytona 500 and how different it is compared to all the other shows. Steve.
Are we going to do the Thursday show after the duels? Because don't they run the duels Thursday night?
I think the way that we should do it, Steve, is we will do our news show. We'll kind of set up the way that we're going to do our point system that we do this year. That we typically go into. So we'll do that. And then I think we'll have a very short show based upon what happened at the duels and also what we do with qualifying. So that will be its own separate entity. And then we're going to have our betting episode, another short betting episode. I'm going to build a lineup. Joe's going to give his picks. And then again, I'm going to have the whiteboard here. Anybody that wants to ever jump in, please comment below. We're going to pick 5 drivers, and we're going to break down the rules and how we do that. And we keep a running tally. It's just something fun that we like to do competitively among ourselves, as only one of us has a championship. So the other one of us is the two of us. No.
Oh,
sorry, Joe. That's not. No, that's not you.
Oh, it's the national champion.
The
guy that won the national championship.
Yeah, that guy. No.
Okay. All right, then.
No, I can't even win Uno in my own house. Steve, you don't want a high five.
Go ahead. I have another question.
Go ahead.
Next Thursday, can we make our Super Bowl predictions too?
Super Bowl next Thursday?
I bet we get them all right.
And this is why we're stuck in the catch fence.
I'm done for the night.
It's not that we wrecked into the catch fence. We are stuck in the catch fence.
Yeah, we can't figure out how to get out.
Today is National Pizza Day. Does anybody guess what I have smoking hot sitting in the dining room right now?
Pizza rolls.
No, my wife.
Oh, hey.
So on that note, we're going to let Steve get to his wife. Thanks again. Remember, like, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do to promote this. Again, we have a Patreon. If you would like to invest in us, we appreciate that very much. Like the Kentucky Speedway, all good things have to come to an end. Thanks for tuning in.